Let's jump right into today's explainer, where we're looking at a truly intense wilderness test. Picture this. You're stepping into an unforgiving Alaskan valley. The wind is biting right through your layers, and the clouds are ominously low. You have no tent, just a tarp, some basic tools, and your own wits. Now imagine dealing with all of that when you're only 13 years old. This is the reality for Tom. He's facing down one of the harshest environments on Earth for his first solo bushcraft survival test. And as we're about to see, nature really doesn't care how old you are.
Almost immediately, the stakes absolutely skyrocket. Before Tom's camp is even remotely built, the sky just opens up. And this isn't some light, peaceful drizzle. We are talking about relentless, freezing Alaskan rain. As Tom himself puts it, I am freezing cold. I am soaked to the bone. He packed for a dry winter trip, not this icy downpour. And if you know anything about survival, you know that wet clothing in freezing temperatures isn't just uncomfortable, it's a literal ticking clock to hypothermia. The pressure is instantly dialed up to a 10.
So you'd think, okay, just quickly pitch the tarp, right? Well, the Alaskan Earth has other plans. Tom tries to set up his shelter, but the ground is frozen solid. It is literally as hard as concrete. He physically cannot drive his stakes into the dirt. The wind is howling, his hands are getting totally numb, and he's completely exposed to the elements. So what do? How are you going to anchor a life-saving shelter when the Earth itself completely refuses to cooperate?
Well, when the environment takes away your plan A, you've got to improvise. Tom realizes he desperately needs dead weight. So he locates this massive, heavy log and physically drags it through the mud and the freezing rain right to the front of his tarp. He then ties his ropes directly to the wood to anchor it against the howling wind. It's gritty, desperate problem-solving at its finest. But here's the thing. Securing the tarp is only half the battle. He still has to find a way off that freezing ground.
Let's break down the sheer, grueling physical toll this takes on a 13-year-old. 1 hour in, he's sawing down trees with freezing rain pouring down his neck. 3 hours in, he's violently delimbing wet wood with a pack saw as the temperature completely plummets. 5 hours in, it's just relentless, back-breaking manual labor to build a wooden bed on a slight incline, just so he doesn't freeze in the mud. By the end of this crucible, Tom's muscles are absolutely screaming, and every single layer of clothing he has on is completely waterlogged.
And that brings us to a terrifying question. With his clothes absolutely drenched, his gear dripping wet, his firewood soaked, and a damp sleeping bag, how on earth is a kid going to start a fire? Without a fire, there's no warmth, there's no dry clothes, there's no hot food. The upcoming Alaskan night will be agonizing and potentially lethal. Every survivalist knows this golden rule. Wet wood is your ultimate enemy.
Now, we should point out that Tom isn't completely abandoned out here. Just over the ridge, his dad is camped out, acting as this quiet mentor in the shadows with the walkie-talkie. His dad is there as a lifeline to prevent a lethal disaster. But make no mistake, the physical suffering, that is entirely Tom's to bear. It's Tom's hands shaking from the cold. It's Tom's boots sinking into the wet mud. It's a really powerful contrast, having the safety net of a father's voice against the brutal reality of a young boy having to prove he can endure this.
You know, the isolation out there really wears on you fast. As the misery kind of hits its absolute peak, his dad steps in briefly to help stabilize the camp, and they cook some quesadillas together over the struggling coals. In that moment, Tom admits, I would rather be cold and miserable with you than cold and miserable by myself. It's incredibly human. Beneath the tough exterior, he's still a kid seeking comfort. Sharing that hot food in the freezing rain becomes this fleeting moment of warmth before the ultimate test begins. But man, that comfort is short-lived. The rain takes a temporary pause, giving Tom this razor-thin window to prepare for nightfall. It turns into a frantic race against the fading light. He's gathering extra wood, stashing it under the tarp. He hangs his wet stuffed sacks near the smoky heat, desperately trying to salvage his sleeping gear. And in a very stark reminder of exactly where he is, he places his shotgun and his radio right within arm's reach. Because as those shadows lengthen, the reality of sleeping alone in bare country really starts to set in. Then it hits 10 p.m. His dad packs up, says goodnight, and hikes back over the ridge to his own camp. Tom is left completely, utterly alone. The fire is just casting these dancing shadows against the trees. The comforting voice of his father is gone. It's literally just a 13-year-old boy, a damp sleeping bag, and the suffocating darkness of the Alaskan wild. Imagine lying awake on a hard, slanted wooden bed, terrified that if you fall asleep, you're going to roll off into the mud. His sleeping bag is clinging to him, totally wet and cold, and all around him, the forest comes alive. Owls are hooting loudly up in the canopy. Unexplained twigs are snapping in the pitch black just beyond the firelight.
It is a true test of mental endurance. He's shivering through a sleepless, deeply creepy night, just waiting for a sun that feels like it's never gonna rise.
As he's shivering out there in the dark, this massive, looming question hangs in the freezing air. Will his fire actually survive? I mean, he gathered wood, sure, but the environment is relentlessly damp. If he wakes up to dead ash, he's gonna have to start the agonizing process of making a fire with numb hands all over again. Is he gonna make it to dawn, or will the bitter cold finally defeat him?
Finally, sunrise breaks over the valley. Tom checks his fire pit, and hidden right beneath that gray ash are glowing red embers. Because of his frantic prep the night before, he doesn't even need to use his flint and steel. He simply breathes life back into those coals, adds his dry kindling, and watches the flames just roar back to life. It is a massive, game-changing victory of preparation over the elements.
And let me tell you, the reward for surviving that freezing crucible is absolutely glorious. We're talking thick slabs of sizzling bacon over an open fire, warm cinnamon rolls heated right on the wooden poles of his shelter, and to wash it all down, sweet white birch root beer. Every single bite must taste like absolute victory. It is the ultimate sensory-rich payoff for a night of deep suffering and pure self-reliance. As Tom packs up his gear, leaving no trace behind, he reflects on the whole crazy experience. He says, "I survived my first bushcrafting camping trip without a tent, and I learned a lot." He didn't just barely survive the freezing rain, the concrete ground, and the terrifying isolation. He conquered them. He completely transformed from an ambitious kid into a proven survivor. And honestly, looking at everything he achieved out there, it really leaves you wondering, if a 13-year-old can face down the freezing Alaskan wild and come out smiling, what limits are you capable of pushing past?